And we're back with some Shipbreaker, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Class 5 ship, the Gecko. This here is a stripped-down Gecko. When trying to do a tutorial for this, I realized it just looks like someone running around like a mad lunatic, cutting everything and yanking things, and you don't actually learn what's going on unless you already know what's going on, and that's kind of pointless. So what I've done here is I've stripped the ship down. I've stripped off all of the top of it so you can actually see the insides. Back here are the doors where you come into the ship, and that's where you go down here and you can enter into the ship through these doors. There's the nuclear reactor sandwiched in between the two airlock entrances. Now, excuse the pan and zoom, but there's a walkway that goes right through the middle of the ship all the way up to the front. And then on the left-hand side, you'll have the cockpit, and then on the right-hand side, you'll have the cooling unit. There's a cooling unit in there that keeps the reactor from going critical. So the cockpit there, cooling unit there, sometimes they can switch sides, I've been led to believe, but I haven't seen one yet. They all seem to be always on the same side. In the middle here, you'll have the cargo section. Cargo section is incredibly valuable, but we'll get back to that. First, we're going to have a quick gander at the cockpit. Now, the cockpit here is, well, it's a pain in the butt. There's a load of good stuff in it. The problem is it's sort of sandwiched in here and you have to rip it all out. So while it is great, usually what I do is I just chop it off and dump it into the furnace, assuming it gets that far. Though honestly, there's far more valuable things you could be doing with your time. But if you do want to rip it out, I find the simplest thing is there's 4 little beams here. I've already chopped out 2 of them, but you just yeet, 1 gone, 2 gone, and then once you've done the other 2, you simply grab these. You grab some tethers and you can whisk it off into there. I'm just doing this for now so that we can get a cleaner look at the ship, because once you realize the way it's stuck together, it makes it much easier to rip it apart. With the front of the ship gone, you can see it's actually quite a simple ship. It's 3 box modules at the front, connected by 1 walkway that splits up into, well, 3 sections, connected to 3 box rooms at the back. The center one just happens to be the nuclear reactor. Now, the cargo modules here in the middle are actually quite valuable, but I'm just going to rip those out so we've got the place a little bit more bare bones. Here is our more bare bones ship, and as you can see, it's much more straightforward. You notice there's this pipe down there. That pipe is actually the cooling pipe coming all the way from the cooling unit at the back. So let's discuss the reactor in the room. Now, the reactor has 2 things going to it, fuel and cooling. If you remove one of them, that's fine. If you remove both, it instantly starts going critical, which is bad. So if you do turn off the fuel or sever the fuel, don't sever the cooling, or vice versa. My advice, though, would be probably keep the cooling and get rid of the fuel. There are 3 ways to get rid of the fuel currently. Now, we'll go through all 3 of them pretty quickly. The first way is you could put a key in there and that will disable the fuel, and it clears all the fuel pipes. The reason you want to clear the fuel pipes is, well, we would like to destroy that fuel pipe there so that we can rip the reactor out and launch it straight down into the bottom barge. But unfortunately, if we start touching that with, fire, bad things will happen. The second option, which is probably going to get patched out, is if you can use your pin laser and you can just go boom. Now that entire pipe is empty of fuel, and if you repeat that process all the way along, you'll have turned off the fuel. Oh, another reason you want to get rid of the fuel is so you can rip out these engine modules. For example, we can now just hook up onto that. Off you go. Get out of here. Bye-bye. Yeah. The second option, though, this one's, or the third option, I should say, this is a little bit more dangerous. I would probably go left or right if I'm doing this. And you want to do this really quickly. What you do is you're going to twist this, and the moment you twist this, fire is going to start coming out of this. Well, not almost immediately. So you're going to want to twist this, immediately run to the next one. Come on. Immediately turn the second one. And then immediately turn the third one. And then you won't have fire come out of there. The longer it takes you to turn all 3 of those, the more fire and damage you're going to experience. Oh, and when it comes to turning the key in the first one, in the first option up there, you can buy a key back at the home base. There's keys you can buy. They're about 50 grand a pop, but for 50 grand, it depends on how quickly you want to get something done and how safely you would like to do it. What are you doing there? I'll get rid of that. Don't care where that goes. Now we're going to rip out the reactor. It's a fairly straightforward job. Once you've turned off the fuel, all right, you get your pin beam, rip out that, rip out the second one, and then there's that little piece in the middle. Yes. Okay, we're close. We'll get rid of these. I'm not even going to try recycling these at the moment. Well, maybe a little bit. We're just here to demonstrate exactly how you rip it out. Done. Then. Boom. Now bear in mind the cooling is still on, so the cooling's going to pop. The moment you start ripping it out, it gives off some electrical charge, and... oh, we got lucky there. Normally the electrical charge will usually arc and cause something to pop, usually the cooling. No. Once you've got all of those done, you can rip out the last of the engines and do the other things, but that's just the main core of the ship and how it works. That's how you deal with the fuel system. And now I'll show you a good way to strip this whole ship apart and get the maximum amount of money out of it for the minimum amount of time and effort put in. Here we are in a brand shiny new Gecko. And what we're going to do is we're going to immediately pay the 50 grand that it costs for the key so that we can turn off the fuel lines. Now you sort of have a choice. You can turn off the fuel lines or you can turn off the cooling. If you turn off the cooling though, you can still, the reactor won't go critical, but when you do rip it out, you're probably going to ignite the fuel lines and cause an enormous amount of damage. I think you're better off turning the fuel lines off and leaving the cooling on. At least then the reactor remains stable. Now next up we're going to go beneath this and we're going to start chopping some holes down here. With 4, or was it 5 simple cuts? With 4 or 5 simple cuts, you can rip away a whole chunk at the bottom here. There's the reactor right there, and down below us is the barge. So you can quickly and efficiently cut a small hole, just a small strategic-sized hole. However, yeah, they're smart here. What they did to make sure that you couldn't just rip out the reactor that way is... One second. That's another reason you want to get rid of the fuel. The fuel is actually what's going to be blocking you here. I'll get rid of the fuel pipe. You'll notice you've still got this giant metal beam in front of you. And this is where things get interesting. If you think, oh, I'll just remove this beam, it should be very simple. No, it's not. It's severed on this line, which is fine. But if you trace it along, you'll find that... Where is it? Here is the T-view. You can't actually... This is one continuous beam of steel all the way along quite a distance. If you'll check, that's the reactor over there. And this over here is the point you have to cut if you want to let this entire beam sag free. You also have to cut all of these connecting points as well. But yes, this one beam goes all the way back here. Meaning if you want to take the reactor out, you've got to cut out an enormous amount. And I don't think it's actually a bad idea. Cutting out all of that beam and all of the stuff along there gives you access to all the cargo containers. That's about 1.3 million in salvage for the cargo containers. So taking them out is not a bad idea. However, if you're on an absolutely strategic, I need to get this reactor out and I want to get it out with the least amount of effort possible, then there are a few ways around it. It's just a little bit, well, a little bit sneaky. First thing you do is we're going to come at this problem, let me call it laterally? Sideways. Sideways, yes. We're going to come at this problem sideways. And we're going to do it by burning out a whole bunch of walls here. With some strategic shots from the beam, we're able to take out a whole bunch of the surrounding walls. Now, we can't pull the reactor out directly, but what we can do is pull it out sideways. Actually, why am I wasting that? Let's just grab this sucker here. We can get some of those panels out. Now, is it perfect? No, you've got to come out diagonally. The reason being that giant beam in the way is a bit of a problem. Let's see it from underneath. Yeah, to go directly out, we'd have to go through that beam. However, if we sneak out the sides, we've got a much better chance. So the simplest thing I found to do is grab this. Let's chuck you over there.
Reactor meltdown triggered. Action urgently required.
There we go. It's a little bit of a two-parter, but reactor gone. Go on, get down there.
Salvage deposit accepted.
Now, you'll notice that the ship has got a little bit of a frozen tone going on. That's because the icy piping sort of snapped and broke. The moment you pull out the reactor, it's going to start arcing electricity. And that arcing electricity will cause problems with everything around it. Now, if you leave the fuel lines in place, well, yeah, let's just say this would be an awful lot messier and an awful lot more damaging. But you'll notice that despite all of that icing up, all 3 of the engines back here are all perfectly fine. And all of the flammable liquids back here also perfectly fine. So maybe pulling out the... This allows you to basically rip out the engine really quickly. I mean, how many minutes have we been playing? Okay, we're 10 minutes in, but I was actually taking my time. But you could probably rip an entire reactor out in about 3 or 4 minutes and then come back and do it again. However, if you do want to do a little bit more, let's have a check of some of the things you can do quite quickly that'll get you a lot of cash. We're back on a brand new Gecko, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to start with the cargo bays in the middle. The reason we want to start here is this actually allows us to get all of these out and also makes it easier to get at the reactor. So that's why I've gone with a brand new shiny reactor and all of this. So let's just skip forward while we loosen up these cargo modules. Once you get all the cargo modules loosened up, you're going to want to go down and we're going to be doing some slicing and dicing. Now, you're going to want to slice and dice everything along this bottom beam. You don't need to do anything along the top. Just if there's one of these little cut points anywhere along the bottom, just all the way along the central spine, you need to slice them. This is unfortunately the worst place to get stuck. But assuming you can get through it without too much difficulty, you just keep popping through and you keep slicing everything all the way around. You're just doing the bottom of the ship. You don't care about the top. Top of the ship's not worth nearly as much cash. Or, well, it's not going to make your job as convenient. Once you've sliced through all of the supports at the bottom of the ship, you're going to want to pop out the bottom of the ship. It's time to start yanking these all the way. Now, you're probably going to have to go back for tethers a second time on this run. It's just the amount of stuff you're going to have to shift into these things is kind of ridiculous. My advice, come out from the bottom, use them this way, and you can start yanking stuff away. Come on, everyone out of here. You will burn through a lot of tethers, but what you will end up with is, well, the whole bottom of the ship completely gorged away. And once it's gone, you're left with all of these tasty shipping containers. They are worth a fortune. They're worth like 1.2, 1.3 million, depending on how many you've got. Though you're probably going to have to go back for tethers at least once. Assuming you got the upgrade to 25 tethers. Yeah, because all of these need to be tethered down. They're way too heavy to be moving, even with an upgraded boop gun. And would you look at that? The entire bottom of the ship has been cored out. There's the front 3 rooms, cockpit, cooling. And at the rear, we've got the reactor and the 2 side entrances, or the 2 entrances. But you'll notice that we've ripped out everything below the reactor, so now we don't have to worry about that beam in the way, and we've also scored ourselves a load of cash. So let's just crack this open, and we can add the reactor into this playthrough. Let's see, you, straight down. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter if an item hits another item that's down there, it's fine. Come on, hurry up. Too slow, move faster. And yes, we've got a little bit of icing. That's pretty much going to happen. It's expected. But the damage should be minuscule. Oh, great. Well, that's not good. So, let's grab one of these suckers, can we? Nope, I got the wrong angle for that, don't I? Oh, 1 second, let me check the remaining damage. Once the fuel is off, that shouldn't happen, but unfortunately, even empty fuel lines can still cause fires now. It's a bit of a bug, I think. Once all the chaos has calmed down, go and grab yourselves those engines. Those engines are absolutely worth a fortune. Grab all 3 of them. They're not. You don't have to be super gentle with these, to be honest. I usually just yoink them out by just grabbing them with tethers, and then hopefully finding somewhere where the tethers can reach down there. A little bit of diagonal extraction. Now, I know there's the caps on the other side of these engines. Don't worry about them. The caps are worth about 14 grand or something pathetic, and you've got to do 2 cuts to get them out. It's just not worth the cost of getting them. Also, those fuel tanks over there, those fuel tanks are not really worth the effort of getting out of the way. I mean, I would get them out of the way if I was trying to make an area safe, but actually putting in time and effort to extract them, not worth the cost. So now that you've got the reactor and all of those juicy barges or containers, what else do you want to get your hands on? Well, first thing is this cooling machine over here. This thing is worth about a cool $250,000. Oh, that was a terrible pun. Sorry, that was not intentional. Then we yank this out. Just move back a bit and it should drag it slowly for you. And all you need to do is get it to the edge right there. Boom. And down it goes as well. That's another chunk of cash for the bank account. Now over here, let's see, we have the power supply. That is also worth about a cool $250,000. Though it's a little bit trickier to yoink out of here. Come on. Come on. But once you get it out far enough, grab it with the usual little thingy. And another tether down. You're probably going to have to go back at least once to get more tethers for this. So what else is worth a lot of cash and is quick to get your hands on? Well, there's actually a few things. We'll just go through some of the options you'll have if you're looking for that last bit of cash and it's coming near the end of the game. One is there's the heat sinks. There's heat sinks around here, or there used to be unless they got destroyed in the fires. Or the freezing, I should say, and the fires, which should only have been one, not both. Where is it? No. Normally there's heat sinks on the inside, either here or the other side. Let me have a quick check the other side. Over here at the back, there's a heat sink. There's usually about, well, you sometimes find 2 or 3 on a ship. But the heat sinks are worth about 60 grand, I'd say. So you want to grab those. Oh, that barge, yeah, that's supposed to be going to the barge. My bad. Oh. Okay, I'm all wrong buttons today. That goes into the barge, but as well as that, there's actually a little sneaky thing under it. That's worth about 60 grand as well, for not much effort. It's the heat spreader right there. All you got to do is zap this. Okay, it does take a little bit of time, so it's not exactly the cheapest thing in the world. And there you go, you've got your hands on a heat spreader. Heat spreader's worth almost the same as the heat sink, so yeah, let's just grab that. That can go into processing as well, and it's actually pretty light, so if you're running short, this is good to leave till the end. If you're running short of tethers, you can just yoink this in with a little bit of a boot. Usually there's a few more though, we only got one on this run, which was a bit light. And let me have a quick think if there's anything else worth picking up out of this. Oh, I would probably be doing a disservice if I didn't mention the cargo hatches. They're worth about 60 grand, but unfortunately, you gotta do like 2 cuts for each one. So it really will depend on how much time you have. So let's say boop that off. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Oh, great. Yeah, we have to do both sides, don't we, with these? Yeah, like I said, they're not exactly the most time efficient in my opinion, but for 60 grand, you can't really complain, I suppose. Yeah, there we go. So we'll just snag one of those for now, but we won't get all of them. We've gone over the 15-minute mark, which would be beyond what would be your normal time frame. So I just want to show you what kind of money you can make in a 15-minute period. Let's go back in here. There's one more thing I wanted to get. That was a computer console. Yeah, that computer terminal, that thing's worth about 60 grand as well. So let's yank that down. That one's a quick one, especially considering you're going to be ripping out the floor. Boom, all the way down. Let's cash out and see what we made. And there we go. For not actually breaking our backs, we got about 7.4 million. And that was going quite slowly. I had to explain quite a few bits and pieces here and there. You can definitely do this in under the 15 minutes, and it's pretty safe to do. As you can see, the shipping crates bring in 1.2 million. And by chopping out the bottom of the barge to get those shipping crates, you make it much easier to take out the reactor much more safely. At the same time, taking out the whole bottom of the barge allows you to gain access to the engines as well. And those engines, the Class 3 thrusters, are worth about 1.3 million. Taking out those panels is worth about 800 grand, which is great. You get some nanocarbon and a few other bits and bobs. But that's the cooling unit there. The ECU, that's the cooling unit. That's worth 240 grand. The power generator, that sort of triangle thing we took out of the back near the cooling unit, that was worth about 270. Heatsink was worth 64 grand. The heat spreader was worth only 30 grand. Might not be worth it depending on how strapped for time you are. Now, I did grab one of the cooling tanks just to demonstrate. One cooling tank is worth 10 grand. One fuel tank is worth 17 grand. And considering how difficult they are to extract safely, I'm a little bit hesitant about ripping them out. The computer terminal was worth a cool 49 grand, and those cargo hatches were worth 77. I would probably, if it came down to choosing between, say, pulling out those fuel tanks or going for the cargo hatches, I'd go for the cargo hatches. They're far more valuable. Anyway, that's sort of a rundown on how I would tackle dealing with a Gecko. Just rip it out from the bottom, gut it from the inside out, pour everything out the bottom of it, and don't worry about the top half. Pretty much everything above the top half can be ignored if you're just going for cash. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, and good luck.